This is Up Close, SABC News weekday program that profiles men and women making waves in their industries and gives newsmakers a platform where they can share their stories and vision as we hope to inspire you, our viewer. I'm Tshepang Motsekuoa. Stay tuned for the next half hour as we talk to business leader Jerry Vilakazi. Born in Mpumalanga, this business leader extraordinaire initially trained as a teacher, but that was not the end for Jerry Vilakazi. He pursued a bachelor's degree with Unisa, then master's degrees with both Thames Valley and London University, and still went further to obtain an MBA from California Coast University. He's best known for his role in various boards and holding executive positions such as CEO of BUSA, Managing Director of Black Management Forum, Chairman of CETA. But the real question is, who is Jerry Vilakazi? Jerry, thank you for making the time to join us on Up Close.
Thank you. Good morning.
Jerry, who is Jerry Vilakazi? Not what do we know about Jerry? Who really is Jerry?
I think I would say I'm a very humbled person. That's what people have told me, but I'm somebody who is always inspired to do something new. I always venture to discover things, and this has been my character since I was at school. When I was doing Standard 8, I wrote poems and submitted them to Vets Publishing House right from Mpumalanga in White River, where I was born. And I wanted to publish the poems, and the feedback came back. Some of my poems were approved, others I was told were too prosaic. I sat down, I wrote a new batch of poems, 50 poems, and I sent them back. By the time I finished Matric Standard 10, I had published poems.
Wow.
So I've always been an inspired person by things around me and wanted to venture into something new.
Okay, let's go back there to growing up in Mpumalanga. What was that like? Take us to your childhood before we get to the Jerry the poet.
Well, I was born in 1961 and in very rural area in Mpumalanga. And I grew up, we had to walk long distances to school. Actually, in my first year, I failed my first year at school because I didn't go to school most of the days. I hated school, I hated the distance. I remember one time my mother chasing after me, taking me to school, and children peeping through the windows as she was hitting me with a stick into the principal's office. That was my first year, and at the end of the year, I failed. That was the first and the last time that I failed at school.
Do you remember what it felt like failing that's like class 1?
I think I did feel a bit hurt because I remember sitting down with all the embarrassment of having been chased to school. And from that time on, I think I started developing an interest to go to school. And from that time on, I just wanted to go to school. But I lost a year in my life in sub A.
And then let's look at that, because poetry, that means you had an interest in language, you had an interest in expressing yourself emotionally. Where did that come from?
I think I love reading, and I used to do a lot of reading when I was at school. I would read books, I would buy a book, and sometimes I recall when I was at school, a teacher was teaching. There used to be these books called James Hadley Chase, and I used to buy a series of those books, and while the teacher was teaching, I would be having a book under the desk.
So you actually bored in class? You'd rather be reading your novels?
I think I did tend to be bored by some of the teaching lessons.
Yes.
And I would be reading something, I would be reading a newspaper, and yeah, I used to like reading.
Yes.
When I visited my mom, who used to be a domestic worker in Nelspruit, and we lived in White River, I would visit her some of the weekends, and I would come with my books, arrive, sit, and she would complain that, but you are visiting here, now you're sitting and reading and not telling me how is everybody at home. But that's the character I was when I was at school.
So were you quite a quiet child, Jerry? Would you say you were quiet, or were you playful? Were you out in the playground, you know? Fighting with the other boys or what?
No, I wasn't fighting, but I was very active. I recall one time we're doing physical exercise. We used to do physical exercise at school every morning, and the teachers would pull me at the front to demonstrate to the other kids. I remember one teacher saying I was going to be a good professional soccer player, and I became a terrible soccer player. I never even featured in the main team at school, despite all that. So I was active, and I like talking. Probably.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I do recall at school I got punished a couple of times for
Talking in class.
and talking in class, yes.
Yeah. Interesting that you say you were in rural Mpumalanga, but yet you were able to buy yourself books. How did that come about? Your mom is in Nelspruit, she's working as a domestic worker. How did you make that extra little bit of cash to buy yourself books?
When I was doing standard 4, I was still very young at that age. I started working as a gardener. Every Saturday, I would go and do some piecemeal jobs. I worked until I finished matric every Saturday. So I used to get myself some pocket money, and therefore would be able to buy myself, especially newspapers. I loved reading newspapers. I would actually go to town specifically to buy a paper, The World. I still remember.
Yes.
I used to follow The World every day very meticulously.
That's the 60s and the 70s, so you must have been very aware what's going on politically in the country. It kind of makes me understand now your love for reading and being so aware why you'd want to pursue teaching. Take us to that phase of your life. You go to the University of Zululand.
Actually, it was by accident that I ended up becoming a teacher, because when I finished matric, I wanted to go and train as a medical doctor. But I got a D standard grade in my matric, and I couldn't be admitted to do medicine. I still remember I lost 2 years because I got a bursary instead to go and do a BCom degree in business. And I wasn't interested. I was very clear I want to go and train as a medical doctor.
And you wanted to have nothing to do with business?
Yeah, business was not in my mind at that time. So in that interface, I ended up taking a private teaching post. And I enjoyed, helping children, enjoyed the teaching. And the next thing, there I was, I applied to go and study as a teacher at the University of Zululand, and I did my secondary teacher's diploma and qualified as a teacher from there. And I still miss the class. I used to enjoy being amongst school children, and recently we visited the Morris Isaacson School in Soweto as the National Planning Commission to go and launch the constitutional emblem and the constitutional preamble, so that students
very
can
interesting,
recite
because that means you've gone full circle. But now we want to find out how you end up in the UK as well as the US studying for your masters. After the break, we continue to get up close with Jerry Vilakazi. We'll greatly appreciate any suggestions or comments that you have about our show. My Twitter handle is at Tshepang Motsekuoa. Stay with SABC News. Thank you for staying with us as we continue to get up close with business leader Jerry Vilakazi. Jerry, so now it's happened. You're a teacher, you've trained at the University of Zululand. How do you now end up in Thames Valley as well as London University doing your master's degree?
After qualifying as a teacher, thank you, I then started teaching, and I taught a few years, and I got a scholarship to go and study in the UK for a master's degree in English language teaching. And when I arrived at Thames Valley, I did my study, and I enjoyed my study, and I enjoyed my stay in the UK, and I applied for another scholarship from the Canon Collins Educational Trust, which was funding Southern African students. And I got a second scholarship, which landed me up doing another master's degree at the University of London.
So you clearly enjoyed the UK. What was going on in the UK that made you enjoy it so much? What year was it? Could it have something to do with what was going on in South Africa at the time? Or were there other things happening in the UK that kept you there for so long?
I think it was a first experience of really spending time outside South Africa in the early 90s. It was around 1991 at the time, and there were a lot of changes that were happening in South Africa, and there were still a lot of South Africans in the UK. We spent time with a number of South Africans, and also it was discovering the history of South Africa from South Africans' perspectives. South Africans who have been out of the country for 20 years, for 30 years, that we spent time with. And it was an exciting time at this period at that time, looking at the changes that were taking place here in the country, and everybody, even in the UK itself, excited about South Africa and what could be after the elections. And as a result, by the way, we voted in London at the time, and it was very exciting. Although we missed being part of the long queues, there was a very long queue at Trafalgar Square on the day of voting, and we queued right there, we partied. It was a lovely day. It went on until in the evening. There were parties. So we did enjoy being out there. But by that time, I think there was also an excitement and looking forward to coming back and being part of the changes that are taking place in the country.
So that's when it started to shift for you. Before, you were not attracted to business, to be an entrepreneur, to be wealthy, but it was that opportunity that came, being in the UK, being around South Africans who wanted to come back to South Africa, saying, what can you do? Well, how can we plow back? That's what happened for you.
That what attracted me at the time was to come back and actually join government. As a result, just before coming, I went for a short program at Oxford Brookes University, and a program which was specifically for South Africans who were planning to come back to South Africa and work for government or in government. And I got very excited and interested into transformation issues, into change issues. And therefore, when I came back very clear in my mind that I want now to join government.
And then what happened?
Parallel to that process, I come from an entrepreneurial background. My mother, when she stopped working, she started selling to school children. She would sell fruits, bananas, and all of those things. She would wake up in the morning and make fat cakes and prepare the cakes to sell to students and all of that.
And you used to assist her.
I would weekends, sometimes when I come from doing my work as a gardener, I would come and go and sell tomatoes and sell vegetables from house to house. So I almost saw what entrepreneurship does, that you can buy something for 10 cents and sell it for 15 cents and sometimes for 20 cents. So even as I was a teacher, I used to go and buy stuff and sell stuff. So when I came and I joined government in 1998, my wife and I started a training company. Obviously, probably has to do with the fact that we were trained as a teaching background, and we started doing management and leadership development programs. We trained for corporates, we trained for government, middle managers, senior managers. We ran programs throughout the country, including in some of the provincial legislatures. We ran programs on leadership for members of legislatures. We ran training programs even in parliament for employees of parliament. So we ran a whole host of training programs.
What would you say was some of the best experiences during that time? And I wanted to lead to how you got more entrenched now into business leadership and less active, in government training.
Sometimes I think for me I've been at the right place at the right time. Some of the things that I've done, I found them to have been very opportunistic.
Okay.
I find that I've been somewhere and I saw an opportunity and I went for it. Because when I left government, the first thing at that time I wanted to go to business. And I knew I needed to have a transition. So I took up a position of director with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. And through that, I interacted with many corporates and dealing with financial directors, very senior leaders in business. And from there, things just moved on. I became the managing director of the Black Management Forum. Already, because of the training that I got when I was in government, where I was responsible primarily for affirmative action, for transformation, and I championed, developed programs when I started in the public service and administration department. So I went into the private sector already very strong passion for change and transformation. So most of the things that I do even today are driven primarily by my love and passion for change, for transformation, for economic advancement, perhaps because I haven't lost the reality of where I come from. Whenever I go home, I still see it.
And I want to touch back on that, where you come from, the influence of your mother and your partner, your current partner, your wife, Doreen, and how these women continue to influence you. After the break, we continue to get up close with Jerry Vilakazi. You've got suggestions for us or any comments? My Twitter handle at Tshepang Motsekuoa. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us as we continue to get up close with Jerry Vilakazi. Jerry, I like that you talk about your mother a lot. You've learned a lot in terms of entrepreneurial skills from your mother, and you have a very close partnership beyond personal with your wife. Why is that close relationship with a woman in your life?
I think I grew up in a family looked after by a woman. My mother and father divorced. I'm told I was under 2 years old, so I never lived with my father. I saw my father. He was always distant from me. I would go and ask for money, pocket money to go to school. He would not give me money. So I learned to admire women because they shaped my life. And when I got married, I've been married now for 28 years. And I think I was very lucky to marry a woman who is very hardworking, who is very independent. She's currently running a business. She's a CEO. She actually works harder than I do.
Really?
And she's somebody also who has always been a source of encouragement to me, because she does believe in me, in what I can do. And when I put an idea on the table, she supports it. When she puts an idea, I think we really have been more than just married partners. We are friends. We are partners in all respects. She bounces ideas. When she wants to do something, I listen to her, and where I differ, I give her different views. So she has been very supportive. My mother is still alive. She's in her late 80s now, and still a very courageous, healthy woman. So yes.
Jerry, I mean, give advice to young business leaders, young executives out there, both female and male. I tend to have conversations with people, and it seems to be quite a lonely journey. They seem to be doing it on their own without the support of the partner that you have basically demonstrated that you have in your wife. Where does it start? Does it start when you guys first met? Maybe if you tell us that story, we might be able to pick up something there. How does it start to build such a partnership?
I think I was very fortunate. I think I got a friend. She's actually my friend, and I'm her friend. And from the friendship, we fell in love. And we got married. We knew each other as friends. We could talk about anything. I think that is what has helped. But my own experience also is that when you go to business or you want to go to business, it's about the circle of friends that you create, the people, the networks, the people that you talk to, you interact with. Don't spend time with people who see the worst in you. Spend time with people that will encourage you, people that will see the best in you, people that will see the potential in you. People, when you say something, even if it's a very difficult thing, and they realize that you may not be able to do it, but people who will seek to engage you with a view that says, for you to do this, you would need this and that, but I'm not sure whether you've got that. But people who write you off, don't spend time with people who are like that. Don't spend time with people who are negative, who see failure and everything. Spend time with people who see success, people who see opportunities, so that they can encourage you. We all at some point need encouragement. And if you, I've been fortunate because even in the kind of work that I've done, I've always worked with people who are themselves go-getters, people who have achieved. So I've always had somebody that I looked up to, somebody who inspired me to think it's possible. And that's what drives me.
Your passions are very clear, Jerry. Your passions are very clear. And I think as South Africans, we look forward to see what's going to come in the next couple of years. I mean, like, you've moved on from Busa now, handed over to a woman. So we're interested to see what's going to happen. But tell us about you now, outside of the workplace. Jerry, the personal man, what do you do for fun?
I've got very little time for fun, I must say. I work. I work throughout the day, throughout the night. I do try to get time. Occasionally, I love watching sports on the TV. I tried golf. I just couldn't understand where somebody get 5 to 8 hours to go and spend in the golf field.
That is the most honest thing I've ever heard about golf from any businessman.
From golf. So if I go for sport, I really need a sport for 30 minutes to 45 minutes. When I do my exercises are within the 30 minutes range, because by the time I finish, I'm thinking of my iPad and my laptop to go and sit and do something. That's how I spend my time. I love going to church. I think going to church has really been very formative to my own life, and the faith that I have, I think, has helped me even in situations where it seemed like it's the dark hour of my life.
Oh, I so wish we had more time with you, Jerry, but we're going to have to hold it there. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, Tshepang.
We've been chatting to Jerry Vilakazi. We'll certainly make sure that this is available on YouTube. But before we wrap up today's edition, remember the concert with Hugh Masekela that's happening on the 28th of September? Well, we did ask you to write to us if you want some tickets. Veli Katane, Twadi Komane, Rodney Leshaba, Makosa Zanaklaba. All of you guys win double tickets to the concert, and we'll be in touch with you to give you further information. My Twitter handle is @Tshepang Motsekuoa. You catch us same days here on SABC News DSTV channel 404. Bye-bye.